the president of Northwest College Association, which is an affiliate of CALLERLAB, and we're hosting that. We meet in Maple Valley, Washington, which is on the other side of Great Pond and slightly south, down near Kent, if you want to know where that's at. Let me see, we had somebody here from California, right? Hi. And you're Holly, right? Holly. So I think, other than Mr. Sikorsky, which somebody needs to wake him up, I guess, because he has a class at 10:30.
I'm not calling him.
And of course our principal speakers, presenters. Sikorsky is probably the farthest person away, not counting Ms. Greene here. And then we have California as far as the participant goes, and up into Canada. How far north on Victoria, or Vancouver Island? Yeah, how far?
in Vancouver.
Are you all the way at the north end and speak some other language? So anyway, welcome. That's Gary, right? And we have Heather from Canada also. So it's truly an international meeting, and I'm really glad to have you guys here. Some housekeeping. Somebody needs to vacuum. Somebody else needs to pick up the. Oh no. Housekeeping. If you need a restroom, it's out those doors and just to the right. And don't make it all the way to the front desk. It's the next door down if you need the restrooms. Room 109, most of you have come and visited me, but that's kind of our administrative center. The breakout rooms are going to be, one is here, so that when we get after the keynote speaker, there's one here, and then there's 3 rooms, 9, 7, and 5. So 105, 107, 109 will have rooms in it, and there's a schedule on each room. And then if you're there, Mr. Sikorsky, good morning, sir.
We're so glad nobody had to call you and wake you up.
As Dana holds up his phone.
I haven't seen you for a while.
So, and then if you wonder where the Hawk's Nest is, it's a little house. It's probably one of the original buildings on this piece of property, and it's across the lawn, the event lawn as they call it, and it's gray and has white sashed windows on it, and we'll have breakouts over there today. So if you need any help, just ask somebody. We'll be glad to assist. There is a schedule. She should have 2 schedules. In the syllabus that you've got, there's a scrunched down schedule, so it's all on one page, and then we gave you a colored one yesterday. You are welcome to pick and choose where you go and whom you go see. Do you have any questions before I get into introducing our keynote? No? Okay, that's great. Oh, I forgot one thing. Because we're all volunteers, you only have 1/2 of a syllabus right at the moment. And we're going to get the rest of it reproduced this morning, and by noontime you'll have the rest of the day. You know, you'll have to put it together just like you did. You can tell it was volunteers. You came into them laying all over the tables there. So, but we're getting there, and to which I want to say thank you to all the volunteers. We'll be a little more formal later on. If it isn't really clear, we are feeding you all day today, so you don't have to go in search of food. The beverages will be out all day long. Partake as you will and enjoy yourself. So lunch is included, dinner is included. There was going to be a snack at 10 o'clock, and I went, we just finished breakfast. You know, so they said, okay, we'll just leave the beverages. There will be a snack this afternoon, and then tonight there's a no-host bar that will open at 5:30. It's out in the fireplace room, and we will enjoy each other's company, I hope, for quite a bit. Northwest Callers was founded 10 years ago. We're 10 years old now. We have about 20 members who meet monthly, and we were based upon the concept of callers don't have an opportunity to get together and talk to each other. We're always busy. We tend to call on the same nights, and so we hardly ever get to visit unless one of us is caravanning with our club to another. And so we started by talking, and by golly, it got to be fun. Now, it's not the kind of a thing I would advertise and tell you people that we want you to get together and talk, but you did a great job this morning. We'd like you to continue it on through the rest of the weekend. So if there are gaps, I hope if you want to go gamble, go ahead, Kevin, go gamble, you know. But if you want to take somebody with you and sit and talk while you're gambling, okay, since you have to do it all by hand anyway. You know, so we hope you'll get to know each other. We have found that chatting together, all of a sudden we're kind of calling the same things, and if there's something lacking in our area, like we don't know how to turn through, then it becomes a point of emphasis, just kind of like CALLERLAB used to do their quarterly selections. And all of a sudden, in 3 or 4 months, everybody's turning through, or, you know, kind of a deal. Not yet. We still need to work on that. But so that's the concept. There are gaps in the day. You'll find out that a presenter might only talk for 40 minutes. Go out to the fireplace, sit in the lawn, get something to drink, and get to know each other and see what's going on in your region that's different from ours. You know, I found out that as a general rule up in Canada, they only do 1 round dance between tips. We do 2. You know, little things like that. You know, that's what we're looking for. Is there anything else I've missed? We have Dana and Donna Shermer here, the Executive Director of CALLERLAB. So welcome to you guys. Thanks for being here. And without further ado, your keynote speaker today is Patty Greene. She is the 2017 President-elect for the Board of Governors, which also puts her on the Executive Council, kind of automatically that way somehow or another. She hails from Monroe, North Carolina, which I found out something in the last 2 weeks, that my first ever girlfriend and her husband and family moved to North Carolina, and they live about 15 miles from you. So she wrote me an email the other day and said, "Hey, Patty lives near us." And I said, "Well, go get to know her and take your husband along and get him to dance, you know." There you go. I think, yeah, it's something like that. So anyway, you're going to be talking about, what is the title? I didn't bring it up.
Building community in a disconnected world.
There we go. So let's welcome Patty to Seattle.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the 2016 Mini Lab in beautiful Washington. The weather is nice. We're stuck inside, but that's a-okay. And I am reading off my computer because I am not going to go off from script, just because it's safer that way. So, my name is Patty Greene. I'm from Monroe, North Carolina. My husband Steve and I have been dancing since, I think, 1990. And I've been calling since 1995-ish. You know, our start date tends to get muddled with our history. We have danced all over the world, and I've held leadership positions both locally and nationally. I'm the current chair of the Women in Calling Committee, Board of Governors member on the Executive Board, and I am chair-elect of CALLERLAB. Locally, I belong to our local Metroline Calls and Cures Association and the North Carolina Association. And I currently call and teach for the Cane Creek Cruisers, try to say that 10 times fast, in Waxhaw, North Carolina, in addition to regular guest calling for clubs and events all over the place. So when I got the call to be your keynote speaker, frankly, I was a bit shell-shocked. I was thankful that I wasn't on a Skype call because I got that, what? I did that to my boss the other day when we were talking about it. We had a small world story and I went like this, and then I went, oh wait, you're on Skype, you can see that face. And Rem said that the topic of the convention was technology and the caller, and I thought, I'm a caller, and I do work in the technology field. How bad can that be? So I asked what they wanted me to speak on, and he said it was up to me to decide. Really? What's going on in here? I thought, oh great. You know, frankly, I wasn't sure what I could possibly share with you that hasn't already been talked about ad nauseum. I wanted to speak on something different than the lists, or the dress code, or how to teach, or run a group, or the merits of one speaker against the other. You know, I don't have any magic answers on how to grow your group or save your activity, but I do have thoughts on some things that I believe had a lot to do with our growth and retention, and that is building community. At Nationals this year, after the Wednesday activities, I was out with my peeps at the bar, watching all the Biebettes, because Justin Bieber was in town, right next door to where the convention was. And if you want to talk about a clash of cultures on that corner, it was absolutely hysterical. But karma bit me, my phone dropped, my screen cracked. and boom. Turning it on and off didn't work, laying on hands didn't work. I was able to back up everything back at the room, I think, couldn't see what I was doing. And the next morning I walked over to the Verizon store and spent some time with a very nice young man. And when did I get old enough to say very nice young man? I jumped through hoops to use my insurance, and a replacement phone was on its way, arriving on Friday. This is Wednesday night, sometime. And I thought, what? Over 24 hours without my phone? How was I going to stay in touch? I mean, I had places to see, people to see, and places to be, and but amazingly, things worked out. I used Bear's phone. Sylvia and Shauna and Kim made sure I was in the loop, and my world did not come to an end, which was a surprise to me. But during that time, at some point, I started to realize just how addicted I was to my phone and how much I relied on it being there. I started thinking about the times that I checked in and was actually checking out. With family, I'm not really participating in the conversation, but I'm squeezing in another round of Candy Crush. Level 1483, by the way. Checking my email between tips when I'm calling my club dance.
Jeez. Whoa.
Well, come on, you can't say that there's not at least one other person here that doesn't check their phone when they're calling. I'm just saying, sitting in church waiting and I'm glancing at my Facebook feed, having to do one more glance through that news feed and run down the lives on all the games I play before I go to bed. So you plan on going to bed and being in bed by 11 and it's 3 o'clock and you're jonesing because you got 5 more lives to use. It really was a wake-up call for me. So I've been trying to be more mindful about how much time I spend connected up. And I realize that I need to be careful not to fall into the virtual trap and miss out on the world around me. I suspect that I am not alone in this search for balance. Our world today is, for the most part, based on technology and virtual whatever happens to be the current fad at this time. Can you say Pokemon Go?
Pokemon Go.
For many, the end result of all our advances in instant communication have manifested in impatience to wait for anything, fast food that you can order before you leave your house and zip through the drive-thru and pick up, and the ability to live just about your entire life locked in a room without much human interaction. And for many of us, I would guess that our smartphones are never very far from our side. I mean, that's just an estimate, but how many of you left your phone in the room? Oh, I'm really proud. Good for you. So what does this have to do with our square dance activity? Throughout my teens and into my early 20s, I was involved with a camp in New Hampshire, the Deering Conference Center. I was a camper, I was on staff as a counselor, I worked on Camp Family, which just involved cooking and cleaning and maintaining the property. I was the camper that wouldn't leave. The couple who was in charge of the camp were like my second father and mother to me, and to everybody else who passed through the ranks of that place. And right now, Gordon's not doing very well. So on our Facebook page recently, we've been sharing stories about the things we remember. The memories of singing at the top of our lungs, or weeping, or worshiping together, doing dishes and eating together. Those are the moments that we created, and they're still strong and meaningful today. Now, some of these people I haven't seen for 35 years. Some I communicate with on a regular basis. But the one thing that we keep coming back to is that there is such a strong bond of community, even after all these years, that ties us together as family and friends. And we all recognize that in today's world, that is something to take to the bank. The feeling of community, that feeling of community is what I feel today with my Square Dance family. We laugh uncontrollably, we ache and cry for each other, we celebrate milestones and victories, we work together in groups of 8 to problem solve. We literally drive hours to spend a couple of hours or a little bit of time with our favorite people. I even stay up way too late having conversations with people on the other side of the world. I think that people in today's world could use some face-to-face community time with other people. We all spend so much time isolated these days between schlepping kids around, working 2 to 3 jobs, taking care of our homes and our family and our businesses. Square dancing can offer a place to come and be accepted, dance and work together, fellowship, laugh, support each other, break bread together. If we can find a way to get that piece of our activity back into our groups, I think it could go a long way in turning around the tide. The problem that I see is that we have forgotten how to get along with people. We as a community have forgotten how to be respectful, kind, engaging, and honorable. Our slogan that we proudly advertise is friendship set to music. But are we truly friendship set to music? Now, don't get me wrong, there are a ton of people in this great activity who are welcoming, kind, considerate, decent people, and understand that it's not just about the dance at the end. These are the groups that are growing and retaining their dancers. I am convinced that a lot of our activity, however, has lost sight of the friendship set to music part of square dancing, and that is why they are losing people and not growing or maintaining. From the stories that I have heard, this slogan many times rings true only if you are interacting with people who are like you and who are part of your personal square dance family, who think like you and are willing to be like you. Some of our square dance family have become so invested in their opinions and their way of doing things that people are put off. I am continually amazed at some of the stories that I hear. For every good job won, and there are many people doing the right thing and positive stories coming out, there's an, are you kidding? Where you just got to shake your head. I am not surprised that our beloved activity seems to be in a downward spiral. For example, I'll give you a couple of true for examples. This one's about non-dancers and guests. Your club is having its regularly scheduled plus dance. It's April. During the dance, a couple comes in curious about what is going on. What does your group do? A, say hello, shake their hand, show them where the coffee is, and get their name and tell them that lessons start in October, thanks for coming. B, tell them this is a square dance group, thanks for coming, they're welcome to watch. C, ignore them. D, invite them to stay and get them up for a no experience necessary tip. What would your, this is your plus club, what would your group do? I would guess that most groups would do either A or B. Say hello, let them know it's square dancing, invite them to, stand. In the past year, I've called for a couple of clubs that had non-dancers come in off the street, and the club officers approached me about calling a no experience necessary tip towards the front end of the dance for these guests to give it a try.
Oh my.
In both cases, I, because that's who I am, happily said yes. And the club members were the first ones on the floor to fill in that square, knowing they were going to be circling left. Others got up to dance in other squares. So in one case, it was Valentine's Day, and a young man was up visiting his, they're probably engaged by now, I'm thinking, girlfriend, and he wanted to take her somewhere special for Valentine's Day. They came to the square dance. They sat down, we greeted them, I made sure I went up and said hello. Club officer said, can you get them up? We got them up, and there were only 2 people, and we had 4 squares on the floor because the club members just were embracing. They had a ball and ended up dancing for half the night because I could get, there was a group of club members who would just said, come dance, don't come dance, and they got them through. They left with a smile and knowing they would be welcome should they choose to come and give classes a try. I was running a club in Charlotte, and Friday night dance, out of the blue, we had a couple come in, knew nothing about square dancing. They are Israeli. They came in, they said, well, they were having a hard time plugging into their community. They couldn't find a community to plug into. I was in charge, so I didn't care what the dancers thought. So I got them up dancing. Deer in the headlights. They had a great time. They ended up going to a local club, dancing, found a community that welcomed them, embraced them, and loved them. Got sucked right in. And that never would have happened had we ignored them or not spoken to them or not involved them. The first impression that someone has of your group and your activity is when they walk in the door or see you at a demo. Make sure that there are people in your club specifically assigned to watch out for guests. You will know who they are. It's obvious, but they should be greeted warmly, made to feel welcome, spoken to, and find out something, make a connection. Find out how they found out about you. This can be helpful information for you. If a non-dancer walks into your club dance, how about getting them up on the dance floor? Give them a taste of our activity. Let the crowd know you're doing it. Invite them to participate. And if people grumble, well, that's a sign of how we are not friendship set to music. Do it during a food break when everybody's sitting down anyways and they don't want to get up and dance because they're having dinner. Make sure your caller engages them and gives them a good time. And above all, do not ignore them. That's the first impression somebody not in our activity has of our activity. And if they walked in the door and we absolutely ignored them, what kind of, do you think they would want to participate in our activity? I wouldn't. I'd be like, oh, well, that looks interesting. Let me go bowling. Johnny is a member of your club and faithfully attends every dance. His specialty is coconut cake. He brings one to every single dance and it's devoured. It's the first thing gone on the food table. What do? Do you welcome the contribution to the table? Do you ask that he not bring the cake anymore? Do you suggest if there was something else that he would like to contribute? This is straight out of the horse's mouth, this anecdote. In this case, one of the club officers approached this dancer and requested that he not bring the cake all the time because people were tired of it.
Oh my.
That was the excuse. I'm not making this up. He told me personally. So, what do you think he did? He stopped bringing the cake. He slowly stopped attending the dances at that club. Pretty soon he left, and he joined another club where they welcomed him, his wife, and his cake. It's cake, people. If your specialty is candied apples, and you love making it, and you bring it to every dance, and it gets eaten, I could care less if it's carrot cake night. Who cares? But I have seen many a club go down in flames because they're that rude and disrespectful. I think it's disrespectful. Everyone has busy lives, and sometimes our family or life situations or work situations force us to be absent for a while. How does your group deal with people who go away and come back? Do you ask where have you been? Or do you say, hey, it's good to see you? Semantics, but one implies that you have been away and you haven't been fulfilling your duties, and the other says, we really missed you and we are glad you are back with us. Include all club members on your communications, whether you think they will come or not. You never know when their life might free up, and they need to know that they would be welcome when they can come. Life happens. The reality is that these days, not everybody is an indoctrinated square dancer who doesn't do anything else. People have family, work, and just life. If they are unable to make the banner retrieval dance or are unable to travel outside their own home club, well, maybe the club night is the only night that they have free. How about being gracious and understanding and not getting annoyed that the only night they can dance is club night? They're still a member of my family. And if someone wants to bring their special treat to a dance, just let them. If food's an issue, then just dial it back to water and chips and nuts and be done with it. It's not about who can set, it's nice, don't get me wrong, but it's not about who can set the prettiest table or one-up everybody on snacks. We're here to fellowship with people. Don't ask someone to do something that you know they are not able to do. This creates hurt feelings and does not set up success. And if you ask someone to do a job and you want it done a particular way, then give them the information up front. Better yet, tell them the outcome and let them just do it. Don't go along behind them and micromanage or redo what they already did. Your way may be perfect, but there's more than one way to skin a cat, or wash dishes, or pick up the hall, or arrange food on the table. If you've got club members that continually redo things, you'll soon find that nobody wants to volunteer. Why bother? It's not worth it. Susie has been a long-time member of your club. She's unable to dance well anymore, but loves her square dance family. Or she just isn't getting it fast enough for the other members. What do? Avoid getting in a square with her at all costs? Rotate club members in to dance with her? Ask her not to come anymore? Find a spot for her? What I've observed is most people will avoid getting in a square. It's not pleasant. I know a few people who have been asked to leave a club and not come back. In fact, that's how I've gotten quite a few of my club members. They were asked to leave a local club. If you want to square dance and you want to give it a try, the Cane Creek Cruiser's door is open. We are wide open, and I will do my very best to get you on that dance floor. We will find a home for you. I've also heard of a group that asked their more seasoned dancers, the ones who can't dance very well, to be official greeters, or the treasurer, or the hostess. You know, injured, older, incapacitated dancers, it's just a natural progression of life. People get older, they get injured, they lose their partners, they lose their minds. Literally, we have a guy in our area who's got Alzheimer's. He loves the activity. He kept coming to dances until it became a safety risk. People knew, they understood, but once it became a safety issue, you know, he stopped. You know, people said, you know, come once in a while. How can we gracefully minister to that body of dancers while keeping the quality of our dances up? If driving's an issue, have some club members willing to pick them up and bring them to events and dances. I've seen that. We've been schlepping around a couple of older single women that don't like to drive at night, but they love the activity. Every once in a while they'll call, you going? We'll pick you up. Do you have greeters in your club? You know, this is one place where you can have people who can't or shouldn't dance feel like they're a part of the festivities. Because, you know, the reality is, if you're the treasurer or a greeter, you only dance like 1 or 2 tips, typically. Right? So use these people who love their family in that capacity, and you've already built in, they can only dance a couple tips, which is, I think, is win-win. How about asking them to be the treasurer, help collect money at the door? Maybe start using the square rotation card systems at your clubs, at your dances in your club. Some people in my club in the past week have approached me recently about maybe giving this a try, because we do have some dancers who struggle who come to our club. And we're thinking that this might be a way that, you know, person X doesn't get the burden of always, you know, never being able to dance a tip, but everybody can kind of take a village act. You know, and one more thing. Everyone talks about how they want to recruit younger dancers, but the reality is that younger dancers come with some particular issues. How do you handle children that may be part of that package? What about perhaps using some of our senior saints and faithful attendees to be designated adopted grandparents? I was talking to somebody who said their grandfather used to take them around to all the dances, and they had like 100,000 grandparents. You know, we've got people who would be happy to be the babysitter, entertainer. You know, it's just another way to include dancers who are temporarily or permanently at the end of their dancing careers but want to stay involved. So what's the role of the leaders? What's my role as a caller in this community? Do I have any responsibility to build our activity short of making sure I'm calling the right choreo at the right time, making sure I'm heard by the dancers and controlling their dancing? We never really talk about it, but it's just as important in my mind as learning the mechanics and how to sell a song. As leaders of the activity, people look up to us, whether we want it or not. We should model good behavior and be an example to our officers and our members. My job as a leader and a caller, as I see it, is to make sure that I provide the attendees a positive, uplifting few hours, that I entertain to the best of my ability, and I send them out the door feeling a little bit better than what they walked in. It's not about spinning the widget perfectly. To me, It's not about never having a misstep, but that's my goal. I want anybody that walks through the door at my dance to walk out feeling a little bit better about themselves and their life. If I have done that, then I have had a successful night. I genuinely enjoy people and strive to find ways to serve because I personally consider this avocation a ministry in a lot of ways. But even those of you who consider yourself introverts can help to foster a spirit of community in your groups. How about getting to a dance early and getting set up, and then going over to where they're collecting the money by the entrance where people pay and sign in, and open the door and shake people's hands and say hello and welcome them. I can't tell you how much of a difference as a leader in this activity that simple act can make. I had someone tell me that they could never do anything like that because they were shy and not particularly friendly. You know, my first thought was, well, then why are you a square dance caller? But that's a very passive thing that you can do. It doesn't involve going up to people, you know, it doesn't involve being an extrovert. It just is simply stand at the door and shake people's hands as they come in. I mean, if you can't do that, really, you need to reconsider being a leader in the activity, because that's very important, I think. What do you do when the caller or line dance instructor is doing their thing? How many of you have been to dances where the caller just steps off the stage and goes out the back door for a smoke or never leaves? They don't ever leave the stage there are good reasons to stay at the stage if you have to help with equipment, but they just never venture very far. How about walking the perimeter of the dance floor, shaking hands and saying hello? Thank them for coming. I mean, really. I try to make it a point every dance, even at my home club. And they think it's hysterical. They like to see how far around I can get because I talk to people. Go figure, right? But they like to see how far around I can get before I have to get back up there. And then I'll look and oh, okay, I said hello to you, so now I'm going to go say hello to you. They think it's hysterical. You know, it's just trying to engage them. How about just simply being nice to the people that walk through the door of the dance to you? They could have stayed home, but they got dressed. They probably slammed down some dinner or came right from work and chose you to spend their time with. Thank them. Don't be fake. Do your best to be authentic. But you don't have to fawn and gush, just be yourself. But thank them. I've often said that I don't have to like everyone, but that I need to be respectful. Honestly. There are many in the activity that frankly are exhausting to be around. Some that I'm just, you know, I don't pull any punches. There are some that just irritate me to pieces. There are some that I wouldn't trust. Some of my peers, I wouldn't trust them as far as I could throw them. With all this planking, I'm going to be able to throw people pretty far. But it's my job as the person at the microphone and the hostess to make sure they are made to feel welcome and give them respect and kindness and courtesy. I'm not asking them to come live with me. I'm spending 2 hours with them a week. I can be nice for 2 hours. I'm nice. I've seen square dancers be nicer to total strangers than they are to people that walk in that they just don't care for. It's embarrassing. If they're truly behaving badly, I know some people that really should not be in the, I mean, all seriousness, should not be in the activity because of bad behavior. If that's truly the case, then you need to have those crucial conversations with them and find a way to talk to them, because that can also be detrimental. So my challenge to you, I know that we come together at events like this to talk about our activity. We discuss choreo, dress code, who's doing what, where, with whom. It's part of why we come together. But I do have a challenge. I challenge you during breaks, during a meal, during off-hour times, to have a social conversation with someone you don't know very much about. An actual, let's not talk choreography conversation. What do they do for work? What do they do when they aren't square dancing? Grandkids? Family? Where are they from? Do they have any interesting travel stories? I mean, I know it's important to do our learning, but sometimes I get tired of people who only want to talk shop and convince me how much technical knowledge they have and how much better they are than anybody else around and push their own agenda. I mean, we all know that we're all callers. You don't have to convince me, you know what I mean, that, okay, some of us might want to be callers, but you don't have to convince me how fabulous you are. Actions speak louder than words. The people I remember, and I've done a lot of traveling, I've been to a lot of conventions, but the people I remember and feel most connected with are the ones who I have shared a meal with, engaged in conversation that was not square dance connected. We have some really interesting people in this activity who have some really interesting stories, life stories to tell. They're fascinating to converse with. Even some of the ones who are exhausting have some fascinating stories. Now, already this weekend, you're not exhausting. I'm not talking about any of you here. Okay. But already, already this weekend, I have found out something interesting about many of you that I didn't know before. And that's what I'm going to remember. We got a wastewater treatment person, we got some Reiki, we got a ex-cop, just things that make you people to me. And I know that I may not remember, but I know that I have a connection with you. Now, that being said, you don't have to be best friends and spill your guts with every single dancer. In fact, I would suggest that you remember to maintain your professionalism at all times and keep your inner circle manageable. Very, very important, because we know how this activity is. And at the end of the day, primarily, we need to have that. We need to be professional because we need to be respected in the activity if we're going to lead our dancers and have them trust that we have their best interests at heart. As leaders, we meet so many people in passing that it would be impossible to remember every single person and be in an ongoing relationship with them. I mean, how many friends on Facebook do you have? How can you be in zero? You're my hero. How many, and that's our young group, 0 friends on Facebook. How can I expect to be in a true relationship with 1,000 people? You can't do it and live a life and pay attention to your family and to the people who are around you. I'm lucky to some days, sorry Cane Creek Cruisers if you see this, I'm lucky to some days remember the names of my club members who I see every single day, every single week. I mean, I'll admit it. But we should get back to being decent human beings so that after a stranger crosses our path, they don't avoid crossing it in the future. You may not like me. You may roll your eyes when I walk into the room. I've seen it. And I know I do it, so, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And you may have to grit your teeth when you're dancing to me, but I will do my very best to behave authentically and consistently no matter where I am or who I am with. I do not, it's like the woman who plasters all the makeup on and you date her, and then, you marry her, and the day after, she's washed her face and you go, wait a minute, well, I mean, I want to be authentic, but you may not like me, which is fine, but at least you don't like me. You don't like the facade, the fake person that I put out there. I want you, if you don't like me, I want you to not like me. And I want you to know that if you talk to me today, and if you come up to me 6 months down the road and you talk to me, I'm still going to be the same person. I mean, I'm going to be different, but I'm going to be the same person at my core. When we stop acting like it's us against them, old against new, hobby occasional dancers versus diehards, local callers versus traveling callers, when we treat the people who walk through our door with dignity and kindness and respect, when we realize that together, we can be a force to reckon with. Maybe then we will find our numbers creeping up. I personally keep on returning to the fruits of the Spirit. He brings gifts into our lives much the same way that fruit appears in an orchard. Things like affection for others, exuberance about life, serenity. We develop a willingness to stick with things, a sense of compassion in the heart, and a conviction that a basic holiness permeates things and people. We find ourselves involved in loyal commitments, not needing to force our way in life, and able to marshal and direct our energies wisely and for good. Thank you for your time this morning. And it's only 9:41, so if anybody has any questions or comments, or we're happy to. Wake up. Somebody turn down the air. Yeah, turn down the air so it's colder.
I just say a couple of words.
Sure, why not? Do it in front of
First of all, I'll come up front. I think Patty did a fantastic job, Patty. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't have a question, Patty. One thing I want to point out, since we're...
Hold on.
My hand.
I'm a professional.
how to connect it class in the next session.
Okay, since this is, Patty and I will be discussing CALLERLAB during lunch today to the whole group, but I did want to point out mini labs, what mini labs are. As Rem kind of touched on the basis, this is a small portion of what we do at a regular convention, but it is a flavoring of what we do, and that's what you need to realize. It's educational, sharing, and getting together, and we may not always agree, as Patty said, on what we do and how we say it and our opinions and so forth, but it gives us the opportunity to share and voice those opinions. And that's what all CALLERLAB conventions are about. Educational sessions, which we'll have several of those coming up very shortly. You have to pick and choose which ones you're going to go to, and you probably go to one. When your friends say, well, I went to the other one, that was really great, and you say, man, I wish I would have gone there now. You're going to have some major decisions to make where you're going to go. But go to these sessions, express your opinions. Presenters are going to give you some excellent material, I'm sure, but also express your opinions. They may not agree, but that's the way we learn. We learn from one another. About the only thing, that we say on this is you get out of the convention what you give into it. And you have to go attend, you have to participate and be a part of it. At our regular conventions, we have a lot more people. So you get a lot more opinions and a lot more discussions. But, yeah, that doesn't mean we can't do the same thing here. We just need to be more involved. So get out and talk to your people sitting next to you, and talk to the people you see there in the hallway. And that's, to me, 90% of what I pick up at CALLERLAB conventions is what's being said in the hallways. I learn a lot in sessions, but just having talks with people in the hallway and one another, I learn a lot more. So be sure to stand and talk to people, especially people you don't know. Get to know them. With that, I have no other questions. Does anyone have any questions of Patty, since she doesn't have the microphone now? Okay.
And I like the other one. So you can talk.
Okay.
So we'll be getting to our breakout session here in just a few minutes, but I would like it to open it to comments or even sharing some anecdotes. Something that you said about being surprised about somebody coming in the door and say, can we do can we do a no experience, you called it, no experience tip. I was privileged to fill in for somebody up in Mount Vernon, and you would know who that is, in a set of lessons. We were at about the 11 or 12 lesson level, so almost full tilt square answers, right? And 5 squares on the floor, wonderful. And we're going along, and the first tip's up, and I'm actually doing his lesson, so I came in at cold turkey, and you know how hard that is to, you're a different voice, a different setup, a different set of words, even though it's the same language, and so they're trusting me, and we're having a great time. And in walks 7 couples under 30. And I didn't know they were part of the lesson. Golly, how in the world did you recruit 7 couples under 30? Wow! And so they square up in the back, and here's what's cool. The club people who were sitting in the kitchen went, oh, and they came out and filled in the squares. And I said, okay, everybody square through, head square through 4, crash. And I went, huh? You should know that by now. Okay, well, how about a ladies' chain, crash? And I'm going, oh, we're backing down really fast. Where did these people, turns out, one couple had heard that there was a square dance down at the fairgrounds and gathered all of their friends who were coming in for some event from all over the country and said, let's go dancing. And they just walked in on the lessons.
Oh my Lord.
It was a ball. We had a great time. The club people, I ended the tip really quickly, and I said, what's happening, Mr. President? He goes, I don't know who these people are. And I went, do you guys object? And they went, no. Let's just change for the night. And I went, good for you guys. And so right away, they broke them up. And now we had 7 squares on the floor, kind of a deal. And all of a sudden, I saw one lady out there on the floor, and she was going,
Oh no.
and I went, and she goes, and what I said there was, do you know how to square dance in American Sign Language for the tape? Okay, she was deaf. And so I got the attention of the interpreter, put him on that side, I stood up here, and as long as she was functioning within the square, we just let her dance, because she was just watching what other people were doing. And if you don't think deaf people can't square dance, you're wrong. In fact, did you see Dancing with the Stars this last season? The guy who was deaf, couldn't hear a word, won. She functioned just fine. When she didn't know, either that guy or me would tell her what to do. It was so cool. And I'm rudimental on my ASL, but she got it. We had a great time, all because the club embraced it. You know, so there's an anecdote right here local. I was so proud of that group. You know, they did such a great job. And we had a ball that night. They thought, are you guys coming back? We can step you in next week. You know, and it was a one-time thing because they were having a convention and just came down to have some fun. So we just got to add to it. So I thought that was a great thing. Anybody else got a story that fits into with what Patty was talking about? You have a comment?
Well, he's coming up. I will tell you one true story that happened to me. Class night 2. I couldn't teach, got someone to come in. How much damage can you possibly do to my group? It's night 2. Single woman comes in. Nobody knew her. She was told by my substitute caller, who will never, ever call at one of my events or my dance again, that she could not dance unless she had a partner.
Oh boy.
I mean, this is not me making things up to fit my platform. This is truth. So she said, okay, and she danced. I think she was able to dance 2 tips. Nobody was willing to give up their partner to dance with her. He would not allow her to dance the boys' part, because there were other single women there, and she was more than happy, from what I hear, to dance the boys' part. So she left. Come to find out, she was a scout from a local singles group, an active singles group that had gotten together and said, hey, let's look for some more activities to do. Okay, you go here, you go here, you go here, and you go here. Yeah, not happy.
Okay. One of the clubs that my wife and I are members of is Rainbow Squares up in Whatcom County. We were at a club dance, and 7 young people, college age, walked in the front door. Had never square danced in their life, other than they had been doing some traditional square dancing at a local bar in Bellingham. So they came in, they wanted to try modern Western square dancing. They wanted to see what the difference was. We had 3 tips of no experience needed dancing. Brent Mosley was our club caller, and he got the okay to do that, and those kids had a ball, and they all said they wanted to come back for lessons in the fall. So it worked. The other thing that I wanted to point out to you is that friendliness is contagious. When I first started dancing with Rainbow Squares, I could walk into the hall and nobody would say hi. After I'd been to a few dances, then a few people would say hi, nice to see you again. Our club is different now because I decided that it wasn't appropriate for people to ignore new folks coming in the door. So I've made it my mission in life to greet people as they came in the door, and guess what? I'm not the only one that does it anymore. And when I'm calling for the dance and I'm busy up on the stage setting up, I know that there's going to be somebody greeting people coming in the door because they learned it from me.
Tell you, behaving decently and treating people, giving people a chance to be good people when they walk in the door can go an awful long way in our activity. Yes?
Yeah, you made the comment about keeping your core,
My inner circle?
Inner circle, thank you very much. Manageable. What's the difference between that and a clique?
It's not exclusive.
No, it's a good question. I have some people whose opinion I value very much. I trust them. I know that they're not talking to me because of what they can get or what I can do for them. I trust them implicitly, and they trust me implicitly. Outside of that, I have a lot of people that I just enjoy and I'm part of. The clickiness, I don't consider that a clique because I'm not doing that out in public. That's my private life. The clickiness, I think, is another thing that damages our activity because you do get dancers, even callers. You know, I was new to Charlotte 10 years ago, and it was hard to break in because I was an outsider. Even the callers close ranks. Not all of them, but you all know that some of them do. Plus, I'm a woman.
What?
I know, surprise. But, you know, I see groups that travel in packs, and it's okay if you want to dance with your friends all night. I do not have a problem with that. But if 3 of you square up, and a 4th couple who's not part of your little group gets in your square, let them dance with you. It's 9 minutes out of your life. So I don't consider my inner circle a clique because I'm not actively excluding people when I am out in public. You know, that's my private time, what I do on my own time. But if I'm out in public, they're not the only people that I talk to. You know, I'll talk to anybody. I'll include anybody in what's going on, unless I'm having an important, crucial conversation with somebody. So there's a big difference. I mean, it's hard for me to explain it, but you know, to me, a clique is a group of people that goes out in public and they exclude everybody around them, to the detriment of the socialness of the area. To me, my inner circle is not that, because when we go out, if I'm out in public with them, I make sure to include everybody. Everybody who's around. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's how I feel about it.
Okay.
Snack time. Oh, no snack.
One thing I did want to point out too, we talked about talking to people, and yesterday, our teaching, we talked about starting people in a big circle. One thing I believe in very strongly is there's an energy transfer once you touch hands with somebody. Once you touch hands with relaxation or whatever. Hands on, yes. Years ago, Daryl Condon told me a story, so some of you may already have heard it, but many, many years ago when you had payphones. Remember that?
That's history.
They had payphone booths and so forth, and when you got done with the phone call, you hung up, and what was the first thing you did? Check the coin slot to see if anybody left any coins in there. Okay, so they did an experiment. They left some change in there, and when the person went and made the phone call, hung up, put it in their pocket. As they walked out, there'd be some guy walk up and say, "Excuse me, sir, I think I left my change in the slot there. Did you find it?" Almost every one of them said no. So they changed the experiment. They put the money in there, same scenario to get done, get the money put in. As they walked up to the friend, I think I left my change in that. Did you find it? Almost every one of them said yes, here it is. Just that touch changed the whole environment of what they were doing. it made that friendliness. Yeah, we're friends. Well, just touch them. So think about that when you're saying hi to people, just reach out and touch. Now we do hugging, but I'm a little bit, from the old school, I'm a little bit embarrassed to go up and hug somebody that I don't know. So most year I'm going to start with a handshake, or if they offer themselves a hug, then I'll step forward and hug. But the handshake, the touch of the shoulder will make a difference in how they perceive you as a friend. Just keep that in mind.
You know, the world today, I just am constantly amazed at some of the things I see people doing and just the whole climate of the world. And I really think that our activity has something to offer. Because if we can channel that acceptance and that, you're different from me. I don't talk politics. I don't talk religion. I don't talk any of those hot buttons because I don't think there's a place for it in my group. People talk about it, but I don't prophesize. I don't, evangelize. I don't politicize. I make sure I'm very careful about all those things that can be divisive. But if we could find a way to make our activity a safe place where people knew they could come no matter what they were, no matter what color, race, creed, religion, orientation, height, weight, we might actually tap into something. We may actually be that place, that safe place that people can come to. And I really believe that. But blah, blah, blah.
Right. I don't know if this ties in or not, but
Sure it does.
It kind of does, I guess.
Of course it does. Hi. Oh.
Oldest trick in the book, turn the mic off on the caller, right? Brett Kappenman, Northwest Callers. So you kind of talked about the touch and all that stuff and everything. And I think one of the things that I've noticed is that watch body language too, because like for instance, I have people that I introduced to square dancing and they're like, oh cool, I'd like to try that out. And this is like in May. Well, why don't you just give me your name and your phone number and I'll call you back in September. September? You've lost them. So for example, we had some kids that wanted to start in September. They couldn't. So we basically said, and I got pushback on this, I says, well, I'll teach you. I'll just teach you when you're ready. So we cleared out somebody's living room, taught one square, and I know I'm going to get a bunch of glares on this, but I taught one square of kids over 2 Saturdays, the entire list. Two 2.5-hour sessions. They're kids. Totally different than adults. Don't try that with adults. You'll fry their brains. I'm not sure I could learn the whole list in 2.5 hour sessions.
What was the entire list?
The whole mainstream list.
Mainstream.
All the way through mainstream.
Okay.
Mostly DVD, not completely, but for the most part DVD.
Okay.
And I got a lot of people pushing back and saying, you can't do that, you can't do that. Well, I just did it. But my point is, it's not even just that I taught these kids in two-week sessions. My point is that I didn't wait. I took the lessons to them rather than having them come to us. And it seems to me like, at least here in the Northwest, we've got 2 halls that at least our council dances in. 2 halls, both of them very close, right next door city-wise. We've gotten away from having all the council dances, these clubs spread out all over the place. They're all concentrated. Well, people aren't going to travel. So my thoughts is now, if you get me a square, and I actually had somebody on Facebook say, hey, when can I start lessons? I'd like to start next week. I says, go find me 7 people, and I'll bring the lessons to you. So I think that's what we got to do.
Good idea.
That's actually a good idea. But we go round and round at our club with, we start in January. Because if you start in September, you might have half of September, you got October, might have half November. Well, then your club shuts down for Christmas and you've lost them. So we start in January. And I've been known to, like you said, somebody comes, 2 months into lessons, I've been known to take them aside and go, look, I'll catch you up. And then I've assimilated people in. I mean, there comes a point where you have to kind of have them isolated. But way further on than people think that I should, the judgmental people think I should, I'm assimilating, people into my class because I want them. I don't want them to, like you said, they're not going to come back in September. They're on to whatever the next thing is. They're off playing Pokemon Go for crying out loud. They're not going to come to your dance.
Unless you put a lure there.
Oh, well, there are people in our area talking about how they can do it to get people exposed. I actually have it on my phone because I'm trying to learn about it, and it's, you know, it's a problem, I will admit. I have kind of a obsessive personality at times, but that's one way to expose our dancers. That's a good use of technology.
Feed them and they will come.
That's right.
You know, it is technology in a collar, and if we can get him to walk in the door, right? Hey, Brett, backing you up, the adults can do it. It just takes a little bit longer. It took 6 lessons to do an entire DVD plus for 8 couples of adults, and 7 of those couples are still dancing and love it. You know, so I've done that too. You know, it's just a matter of, like Stephen was saying, you target your audience, you teach accordingly, you know, and you make it fun for them. That was the issue, is make it fun. And they retain. Leah from California, I can't think of her last name right now, but she's Veronica. Leah Veronica came up and did a seminar for us in the Northwest, but she's also talked for CALLERLAB before. And one of her best lines, the pearl I took from the last time I saw her, was, out at Denny's, full square dance attire, the guy looks and goes, "What's with the dress?" kind of a deal, and they just snuggle on into their little booth and say, "Would you like to hear about square dancing?" kind of a deal. Where else can you go for 2.5 hours a night, hold hands with your darling, because it's appropriate? She says, get a meal that can't be beat, and go home making new friends. And I thought, that's what we're talking about, right? It's just that connection. So, Stephen, did you have a comment before?
I have one.
99 one.
One comment, 99 words. I didn't say it, somebody else said it.
I'm a professional educator. So I did I did a party dance 2 weeks back, not far from where there are existing callers. And it was an amazing experience. I had 4 squares, ages 8 to 80. And the 80-year-old guy's like, I'll just watch. But then he played a little bit, then he left. So it was a high energy, high emotional thing, where an event where they are talking about it amongst themselves to do it again. And they've asked, will you come back? And I'm like, yeah. For me, what makes me different and why I'd be willing and why I would encourage them to bring me back, not that there's not callers in the area, there are. Not that I don't trust those callers, but far too many of our brothers and sisters are reading their material, looking at their laptops, reading their papers. And there's nothing wrong with that, because that's where the good stuff is. But if you're entertaining new dancers, you need to take whatever barriers are in front of you and remove them. You need, I think, at least at the outset, to be able to watch your dancers, make sure that they're moving and having a good time. Because if you can't see them, if you can't see their eyes, then you can't see their smiles. And if you don't know that they're smiling, you don't know that they're having a good time. You have to be able to measure these things. I'm not saying don't read. Again, I have a set of cards when I call at the advanced program. I don't call up all the time. I get out my written material because that's where the good stuff is. But day 1, minute 1, I want to be in front of. I want to be able to reach out and touch these people so that I can see them and connect to them, and that they can connect back. So if you're one of these folks that is a caller that reads, memorize enough material, practice it, so that you can put it down, at least for the first dance, that party, that event, that thing, where you could do circles and stars and keep them moving and having a good time, so that you can maintain that connection, because if you can feel it, so can they. That's my
Thanks, Stephen. Thank you to everybody who contributed to the comments. And Patty, excellent talk.
Thank you.
Well done.
Yay,
Well done.
Patty, yay!
Okay, so we're in our morning break transition time. That is a fresh pot of coffee, and it's actually pretty good. It isn't Starbucks, though.
That means it's good coffee.